Hello and welcome to the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Drogyn1701, and reports that I have been blown away to Oz have been greatly exaggerated.
Carson, it's foiled again.
Only on Tuesdays, though.
Only on Tuesdays. And with me are, of course, three gentlemen who I guarantee you probably were not watching the Eurovision contest. Greendragoon, Markhawkman, and DuncanIdaho.
I made a joke about the Eurovision contest on Twitter.
I was definitely not doing that thing that you said I wasn't doing.
Well, you actually know what it is, so that gets you some points, I suppose.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of, just because it does come up in British TV comedy a bit.
Because while we are Americans, we all have international friends, so we hear about these things on Twitter, even though we really, it's not something that reaches the U.S.
We hear tell of the outside world, but
Yes.
we sometimes do not believe it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I speak reasonably good British myself, so I mean, I'm one of those people that I started watching various British TV shows, Doctor Who, that sort of thing. When I was a teenager, and I kind of picked up on how that.
I've been doing that a lot more lately, thanks to streaming services. A lot of good shows out there, international shows. All right, so we got a lot of news here. Big news. The Foundry is fully back online. They went through the republish, and editing came back up, and then reviewing came back up on Friday. So, somebody is saying that we lost audio.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that's weird, because I think
Pax did.
Does everyone else have audio?
Yeah.
We should still be streaming. It's coming through the streamer fine.
All right. Oh, yeah, I can actually just turn it on myself.
Does everyone else have audio?
Oh, yeah, I just heard myself say...
We heard yourself, so...
Yeah, okay, we did. So Pax might just want to refresh.
Yeah, whatever's going on with PAX, it doesn't appear to be universal. So, okay, back to it.
I scared myself there. Just turned it on. I was like, oh, God!
You know what's funny? Obviously, we did our live play of the Star Trek game last time, and Dragoon did quite a bit of editing on it, and he encouraged us to rewatch it because, of course, we aside from the two guys playing it, we could not hear the game audio for one thing. And then he also added like kill counters and funny stuff like that, or death counters actually. But I have yet to watch it because I don't like listening to myself.
Oh.
I might be able to get over that, but it's
it makes you crazy trying to fix yourself, huh?
Yeah.
At least skip around to see one of the kill counts.
My God, do I really sound like that? Jeez.
Well, for what it's worth, I mean, it gets a little better with time. I mean, obviously, I have to listen to myself a lot to do edits.
Well, and I did too back when I used to do the editing for the show when we before we started doing it live. So, it's not like I haven't done it before. So in any case, Foundry is back up now. We do know that we had a lot of missions that didn't quite get put back up.
Yeah, it seems like the publishing is still a little bit intermittent, even in the automatic publishing.
For all your missions.
Yeah. So check it out.
The thing with this, though, is that those 3 missions, it was apparently almost immediate when they started doing the update.
Well, I know my Federation Spotlight is the Purity series. All of the Purity missions got up except for mine. So
yeah. So that was
fortunately,
kind of
part 6 is not up right now.
Yeah, that was kind of the exceptional part of this update is that Purity 6 was not the first mission back.
Yeah, for the last like
Real
2
time,
or 3 times, it was like the first one back.
Real time took the honor from you this time.
Just think of all those people playing through Purity, and they cannot see the finale. They've got to wait.
Well, I'm going to try and get a hold of Zero on Monday and see if we can get that one back up. Might have to unspotlight it and manually publish it, or maybe she can do it. I'm not sure. But anyone else who's got a spotlight that didn't make it back up, she is the person to get a hold of.
Yeah.
Speaking of spotlights, we actually have our first new spotlight mission in quite a while. And unfortunately, it took a little bit longer than I had hoped initially. So apologies to you, Duncan. But we did finally get it up. Your mission Apex, the winner of our AEI mission challenge.
Yay.
There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on in the community management area at PWE and Cryptic at the time that we were trying to get this accomplished. So I think that was probably part of some of it. But
also Kael mentioned something about how the process they were using is. I forget where I was going with that. Dang it.
But Kael has been really great for the most recent publish. So he's written a blog for it. He's gotten the word out on the Foundry. So huge props to that, because he's really, helping to push not just Apex, but just the idea of Foundry Spotlights, explaining what the Foundry is for a lot of new people. Since we probably have a lot of players in the game right now who have not seen a Spotlight come up in the game yet, because it's been, 2 years since the last one? Or more than that, maybe.
Something like that.
But yeah, this is sort of a new event for a lot of people. So I can say from the reviews coming in, people are really enjoying this one. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to kind of keep up the momentum here and see what we can do in the future.
Plus it can, and this one in particular can kind of serve as a gateway to the other AEI missions.
Oh yeah, I made sure that the other AEI missions were listed off at the end of Apex in the basically the credit section.
Yeah.
So so hopefully those should be seeing a lot more action too. And yeah, in general though, it's been a really fun, very positive experience. I've gotten one troll review out of the it's 400 in the last 3 days plays on that one. And I'm trying to keep up with the ratings on that, and ratings and reviews, just to see the feedback people are leaving, just because it helps me improve my missions, and also as the way of people reaching back out. So
for sure.
Yeah, so it's been a really good and positive experience, and it's been kind of crazy though, because it's basically I'm just I'm kind of in the spotlight right now, so it's a little scary.
Literally in the spotlight.
Yeah.
Well, the time between the last time we had a spotlight and this time is we've been through a lot of community managers in the last few years, and they all have their different pet projects and things they like to do. Brandflakes kind of spoiled us as far as the Foundry goes, because he was really into it. He did tons of challenges, tons of spotlights. He loved the Foundry, and it's not to say the other community managers since haven't, but they have had other focuses. I remember Smirk liked live streams, and he liked the literary challenges. I think was his thing. And screenshot challenges.
He did do one Foundry challenge.
I think he did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
It was the one that you won.
Hey. Yeah, Kael's been really great keeping up basically everything, because we're having a screenshot challenge, we had a literary challenge, and then we were also having all these dev streams too. So, he's
a real active CM, and I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun in Star Trek Online lately.
So speaking of the screenshot challenge, it is another one of these to put in, fan-made loading screens. I actually submitted a bunch, because you can do up to 3 that you can email to.
I did too.
And which is a first for me. I did not put in for the last one, so we'll see if I get any winners. That'd be fun.
I'm just going to send over, I'll put this in the chat log, one of my entries. Real quick one. There you go. You don't necessarily have to make serious entries. You can make silly entries just to entertain the the devs.
Yep. You're going to stick that on the stream here in a second, I'm sure.
Sorry, it takes me a sec to download and...
Oh, yeah, to throw it into an OBS thing, which doesn't destroy the universe.
Well, I mean, I've gotten better at it, so it...
Yeah, that was when I hosted that previous show. That was what really intimidated me. It's like, can I do this and make sure everything's set on the fly. Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've made a lot of adjustments so that I can quickly. I don't have to like resize it. I can just point the link to the file. Anyway, there it is for everybody.
Yep.
You've had a
Usual.
couple years now to sort of, get it and expand what you're able to do with the stream. So get everything the way you like it.
But yeah, just my word of encouragement to people is that, people are going to be sending a lot of really good screenshots. And if you have a fun idea, just kind of go with it. Just because, you can just have fun with the challenge, have fun trying to get that type of screenshot.
It doesn't cost you anything to enter. So, I mean, it's not like,
You can still put like one silly entry in and then 2 serious entries.
That's pretty much what I did. I had a couple of, space beauty shots and then one of a Starfleet officer wearing an old uniform fist fighting with a Zenkethi on the Iconian homeworld.
Oh, I like that one. Yes. Yeah. I focused on ground this time because, I've seen what some people can do with space beauty shots. And I'm just like, nope.
So something I've done lately is recreate scenes from like the shows and movies. So like I did that one of actually I don't even think we did that one back on the show with the Enterprise A and the shot over the bow of the Excelsior.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Which I should totally enter that one.
In Space Dock, yeah.
Except we can't do any post touching up.
I don't think we did.
Okay.
Yeah,
we did. We did do some.
We did?
Because we photoshopped different elements together, so I would have to recreate it with the scene already set up, which would not be impossible.
I mean, which it wouldn't be impossible because we got, the Space Dock interior. You just got to make your spawn points correct in the using the Space Dock asset.
Yeah. The one proviso is that the Foundry has not been prohibited, but they did say that the spirit of the challenge is to showcase what the game is capable of. And it's kind of like
that includes the Foundry.
It includes the Foundry. I just don't know. Like I just kind of put out of my mind trying to set a screenshot up that's kind of just well beyond what we actually can do in game. So I was just thinking of like actually just showing missions off because that's sort of the content people will be approaching if they go into the Foundry. So I've kind of put 2 entries in so far, and I'm just sort of browsing through my Foundry missions right now to try to get that 3rd one.
Okay, maybe I'll pick since we can do 3. Maybe I'll pick a variety. It's like one ground main game, 1 space main game, and then maybe 1 Foundry.
So speaking of recreating screenshots or shots from the films, you could do some good Rathacon ones now because
ooh yes,
an update hit Tribble this week. We have a new model for the Miranda, and it looks fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's a great ship skin. It's a great model. It's super fine detail, and Cryptic's really getting good at those the ship modeling now. They've really got some good people in and putting out some really high quality stuff.
Well, I mean, I found this interesting because it was actually an environmental artist who apparently took like personal time to actually go and redo this.
So we got another guy who is willing to take personal time to do things. Teach him how to put stuff in the Foundry. Anyway, you can make some good Rathacon stuff, screenshot-wise, if you wanted to. Well, let's see. What else do we got going on? Ambassador Kael said that he had begun building a Foundry mission. So
yes.
that'll be fun.
We shall watch out for that.
I hope he continues with it. I pointed him to our tutorial series, Foundational Foundry.
Yeah, and I gave him my most secretist build advice, which is just keep placing things down until the game tells you not to. And eventually, a mission's going to spawn out of that.
Or you'll destroy your graphics card.
Or you destroy the graphics card. But, I mean, that's kind of how I started out on my first build. It's just like, hey, I want to build this type of thing. I'm just going to keep putting stuff down, and then basically a mission developed from that. Yeah, and just thinking about, hey, what can I use this for?
That's kind of how I started. I mean, I just started out in a field and started putting down walls and messing around with stuff. And then the mission kind of grew around that.
All right. I think that will do for the news. So we're going to start by getting into the Foundry here tonight because
I think
we have
got one last piece of news. I think we're forgetting.
one last piece of news. Am I missing something?
Yes, we have a Foundry Challenge going on.
Oh, that's right. The thing that I've been working on for a long time. Okay, since reviewing has been turned back on, we can restart the Foundry Challenge. So I gave people around about 3 days to polish up their missions, and as we talk here, this is Saturday, and the new deadline is Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So everybody who is in the Foundry Challenge should have their missions published by then, and then we can get to playing and reviewing and voting.
And you guys will be, thankful to know that I did not continue my efforts to build a Foundry mission in that time. I started, and I'm just going to say, I just had to say, I'm going to put this on the back burner. If I need a Foundry project for far in the future, I've been thinking about it for a while. I'm totally doing an anime parody of the SSF series in full.
So we, in the original post, said that rewards were to be determined. Do we want to talk a little bit about the things that we have confirmed?
Well, we know that we are going to be offering Zen codes.
Yeah,
we have 2 codes for 2,000 Zen that we can give people for the winner and the runner-up. And we are working on perhaps some other rewards, but we're not quite able to talk about that at this time.
Cool.
Currently, we have 5 missions that are entered on the mission thread. Obviously, there's a little bit of time if somebody has been working on it and just hadn't posted that yet. And that's fine. If they happen to be listening right now, you can go ahead and post in that thread because there's still time to enter.
Mm-hmm.
About a little bit less than 24 hours. If you're listening
if this is like Tuesday, I'm sorry, you're too late.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know some people.
The deadline is May 14th.
Yeah. I know some people had, 1 or 2 people had just said, hey, we'll, give us the deadline and we'll make sure our permission's posted. So we might get 1 or 2 more to bump that up to 6 and 7.
Which is a good amount.
Yep. For the AEI, we had 8, which was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, we had a really big lead up to that, too.
We did.
Because I did make 3 missions before we got started.
Yeah, this one I sort of just sprung on people, even though I had been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I was basically just waiting for the Atlas to be available in the Foundry, and then I could launch it. So
I can neither confirm nor deny that we hired Duncan specifically to stop him from making more AI missions.
Hey, okay, I've got one more coming. And my next one's kind of AEI-ish. She just doesn't start at the Archer system. But it does go along with the...
I didn't say we succeeded.
Did not.
Need more.
So we will be doing voting for 3 weeks, and the way you vote is after you've played all the missions, you PM me on either the forums or Twitter or basically anywhere you can get a hold of me, and give me your vote. So, and obviously we will be doing more of these challenges coming soon. I think our next one is probably pretty obvious. I think we're going to do something 26th century related.
Yay.
But we'll have more details with that, of course, after a good amount of time, because I want to see if we can time this one where we won't get any downtime in the middle of it.
Yeah.
That would imply that we have some predictive knowledge of the future, which we kind of don't.
It doesn't, but we could basically, I think the ideal time to launch it would be like the day that reviewing comes online after the next downtime.
Yeah, so just kind of work on it while we're looking forward to a new season, then we got downtime. And then even if we end up having a season that doesn't have that new code branch, we could then even just release it early or launch things early if it turns out we don't have new downtime. So it's basically start thinking about it once we start hearing about the next season.
So essentially season 14 will be our 26th century challenge.
Yay! So that means I can... Ooh, that's actually going to be good timing because I should have my next mission done by then.
even though we don't allow you to enter.
Oh no! I want to make one for this one because, I mean, come on, we've been having so much good stuff with this. I have to do the Klingon chorus. I have to do that.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
We'll be sort of providing a lot of materials that people can use for this one that we'll be working out over the next however long.
Yeah, because we still got to think about like the very senior posts for the ships and the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just those few core positions.
Speaking of which, I did actually I ran Ragnarok the other day, and I noticed that there was never a picture of Captain Dax.
Yeah, you heard her voice, but she doesn't show up in the text box.
So we could essentially design our own Captain Dax if we want to say it's not Ezri.
Yeah.
She'd be pretty old if it was.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how old is the Dax symbiote, anyways?
800 years.
Yeah, something like that.
So it probably predates warp drive.
Oh, you never know for the Trill.
Yeah.
They could have been tooling around for a while. Let's see. But yeah, on that one, it's we just still got to work out some of the big story elements, the crew, and then a few more maps. And then we should be good to go.
Now the guys are saying in the chat room that showed up in one of those text boxes. Not the main dialogue box, but the little fly-in ones, and I don't remember seeing one. And I was looking for it.
I think it might be one of those cases where you actually have to go back and replay it.
Yeah, I mean, unless they removed it or something, and it was
for
there initially. Captain Dax.
Yeah, and
because I was thinking that she did too, and
I never noticed.
Then I ran it again, and I didn't see it.
Yeah, like I never noticed those that dialogue appearing in a text box. So I know the dialogue came, but I just from my recollection, I never saw that Dax. So I just assumed I missed it.
Yeah. Well, we do know it's a girl.
Yes, it's a female voice.
Okay.
Yeah. But we can always just ignore that.
Well, you never know. I mean, they might use the Enterprise J again.
Who knows?
Yeah, we can even just have it's depending on the timing. We could even have like an old Captain Dax that we assume is basically killed off before the Battle of Procyon 5, and then there's the new Dax.
Or reassigned and make up our own captain.
Yeah. Oh, like I'm doing for a certain mission I'm working on.
So,
right now.
Just a thought. I mean, this is kind of in the vein of what we did with AI, but we could do a costume contest challenge to lead into the our 26th century challenge. Kind of as a warm up.
Well, yeah, definitely do some of that for sure.
I'm going to put Hazra in again.
So speaking of costume challenges, P. Sutherland's costume challenge for 26th century uniforms is, I believe voting is still open.
It's still open, but it's kind of like we've got a pretty clear winner unless we get a flood of new candidates. So
and it's the one that utilizes the Ocampa outfits.
The one players can't use.
So it's like a Foundry only thing, essentially.
Yeah, so we might. One thing I was thinking about that one is that we could sort of. Oh, because we sort of want to have very specific. Like we want to make a uniform with a lot more sort of constraints for sort of general purpose crew uniform to make that available to players so they can roleplay. That might be a good one for like senior officers. And then we come up with something sort of related, maybe using the Krenim uniform. Mm-hmm. That players can...
Or maybe it's an Enterprise only uniform and we come up with a fleet uniform.
Yeah, so it's like maybe a captain fleet uniform or something like that.
The captain of the Enterprise J is a little eccentric, designed her own uniforms.
Yeah, or maybe like the role of captains kind of evolved over time because there's a lot more civilian facilities on the Enterprise J. So it could be sort of like so it could be sort of like a half civilian, half Starfleet type operation. So that person has to take on more responsibility. So they're kind of like part. They oversee major ship operations, but also major city operations.
So it looks like this poll goes to till Monday.
That's probably a good bet. I wasn't quite sure what Sutherland was doing with the timetable, but I think.
Oh,
it's
there,
Monday
yeah, that's
Monday.
European. That's how Europeans format dates.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, day first, then month, then year.
Those crazy Europeans.
Well, they
Yeah.
complain about us a lot too. Anyway, I'm putting the link in the chat for those of you who are watching live. If you want to go put it and vote, obviously, by the time this goes up on YouTube, it'll be over.
Mm-hmm. So, speaking of our 26th century challenge, I've got a challenge for Dragoon with our help to accomplish in the Foundry. So, if you want to start that, Dragoon, and
Okay.
while he's searching around for things to help accomplish it, the rest of us will talk through any number of things. So, what we're going to try and do is see how we can build maps in the Foundry that might look appropriate for a 26th century Federation ship. Essentially, trying to get somewhat familiar to the universe interior that we have. I provided some screenshots for you, Dragoon, in our shared folder, so you can look at them or post them on the stream.
Okay.
Because I ran Ragnarok, as I mentioned, and I took some screenshots while I was in there, because you do go into one level of the Enterprise J interior, which happens to be, of course, the same one that Captain Archer and Lieutenant Daniels had their nice little conversation on. Not
It's kind of a
Crewman
shame that
Daniels.
you didn't like beam in, see them ahead in the corridor.
Captain Archer, what are you doing here?
Oh, they just sort of like they have their conversation. By the time you walk up, they disappear. So it's just like, oh, we just missed him.
They quantum leaped out.
Yes. Yeah, I was actually kind of thinking about just running around this interior. It is slightly more possible than I thought it was going to be at the start.
Of course, we are on the Universe Bridge, by the way.
Yeah, so there's some stuff we can do, and I think the Foundation Block 03 assets are probably going to be used a lot for the walls. So I don't think
The walls are sort of a dark gray textured kind of a thing.
Yeah, and they've got a dark gray textured. It's a different pattern, and it's a much larger pattern. But I think it's probably the closest we can get. So instead of using a traditional wall piece, we use the foundation blocks and walls, which basically means it'll look like one of my missions.
All right, so I just threw up the screenshots of it you took.
And by the way, the reason we have to build something is because none of this is available in the Foundry. So
Nope. Until a
Wow,
certain
that is-
developer comes around, and they're just like, there you go.
yeah, we
This
could
is
totally
intricate.
use that map from Ragnarok or the
Or this map.
or this map, the bridge.
So I'm just hoping Zero watches this, cackles at our just sort of frustration of how can we build this thing that the devs have already built? What can we repurpose?
Yeah. So the things that we've noticed about the bridge is A, no chairs.
Yeah.
B,
Consoles-
lots of railings.
Yeah, consoles should be relatively straightforward. Mixture of science and some of the civilian generic consoles.
Pretty much.
Yeah. The central these sort of big pipes. We've got some angled pillars, ship supports that would do the same thing. They would just be a little bit more geometric. And then I'm thinking for the railings here, inset console auction blocks. Shorter railings, but you could do it. Or auction displays. So the one that basically has a big star chart. So the bridge is somewhat achievable. I just don't know about the other interiors.
Now the floor, I actually went and played around with this a little bit. The floor of those hallways that you're seeing on the stream is actually pretty easy because you just use it's like a Federation dark gray carpet. Use 2 pieces of that and 1 piece of red carpet. And there you go.
Yeah. The pattern gets more complicated on the bridge, but you can sort of play around with similar styles as much as possible.
But definitely, using a dark gray carpet as a base.
Yeah. I like the doors.
All right, so I've got the Foundry all loaded up when we're ready.
Okay. So probably what you'll want to do is look around for some assets. Look through the list.
Okay.
See
So let's
what-
start
see
with the
what you
easy
sort of
one, the
find.
floors. So we're looking at a gray, or dark gray if we've got it.
Oh, another one I found. This will be good for some of the miscellaneous detailing. The cutout pillars. So just basically cut out. Because we've got some of that going on for where the other, Mark and Drogyn can see me, but the stream can't. But you can use those to add a lot more texture.
You know, I just thought of something. These columns that we see around the bridge area here, what other bridge design uses those?
Oh, I have seen those somewhere, or something similar. I'm not. It's not coming to me at the moment.
Let's see, which one?
These 4 big angled pillars.
It's possible they may have showed up in Vodwar interiors, but I wouldn't be surprised because there's so much custom modeling here that Cryptic just went ahead and modeled new pneumatic pistons.
I can't say for sure whether it's exactly the same thing as the Vodwar interior, but it looks pretty close.
I think it's kind of the same principle. It's just a pneumatic piston. So, if there's pneumatic pistons in the Vodwar interior, then actually I might have a screenshot of it.
So by that logic, basically this central thing that's above the central part of the bridge must raise up and down for some reason.
It could, except there's physical supports. I think it might just be bracing for some reason. So it's sort of like if the top gets hit, then some of the forces they're basically shock absorbers.
There you go.
I mean, they didn't build their consoles with Explodium?
Nope, they didn't build them with Explodium this time.
So it's worth noting that basically this is an entirely Cryptic designed bridge because there was no bridge ever.
Yeah, all we got was
show.
one hallway.
Yeah.
I've got a screenshot of the Vodwar interior. There are pneumatic piston thingies in there, but they're completely different design. So the detailing is just completely different on those. So Cryptic's good at designing pneumatic pistons and employing them in interesting ways. But these ones are unique to the Universe Bridge.
So I'm just getting the floor set up here. And that'll just serve as a
base from which we can test how some things look.
Ooh, that looks good.
Yeah, and a great way to, when you have to kind of get these narrow lines, it really helps to use the lines themselves as the base and then add the squares to form their edges. And players can't tell the difference, but that's way less objects than trying to line up a bunch of tiny carpet blocks to form a line.
Yeah.
And you can get a narrower line that way, too.
All right, let's see what we got in walls. Well, I
So
mean,
we're kind of thinking, the dark gray building blocks. At least try those first, anyway.
it's worth a shot.
It's a flat wall, but it otherwise looks pretty similar.
You say there's curved walls on the bridge, but mostly it's pretty flat and square in the other interiors that you see.
Well, also, this is one of those things where the bridge might not look square, but it also doesn't have things that catch your eye as to it not being square. It gives you kind of like an optical illusion where you look at a sphere, and you can only see a chunk of the sphere, so it looks flat.
Uh-oh.
What are you owing?
Oh, it's just on the bridge.
Orbital chasing beam.
I figured out how to use orbital devastation on a bridge map. So it just started, I just launched it, and then it just started going after Mark.
All the cringy shenanigans that you get up to while I'm not around.
Fine, I'll use some Iconian technology.
Okay.
I've got new cool technology.
All right. I mean, I think I need a bigger space to work with, and my walls to be a little wider.
Move them around a little. But otherwise, yeah, that's definitely
it's a good start.
a start.
Yeah, it's obviously not as detailed as what Cryptic has, but it's not a horrible recreation either. All right, so let's start by expanding these.
Basically, what we want to do here is come up with a design method that people could then use to build whatever map they needed. You know, if you needed a science lab or if you needed engineering, you know, this would give you, you know, some assets to play with. Now, one thing that was kind of interesting on the hallway interiors was there was like this flat white lighted ceiling, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite sure we can do that.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
It's always interesting just seeing just what the limitations are sometimes, because you know there's a lot of things with what we have and don't have in the Foundry that are just pretty thoroughly confusing.
Oh, actually, I got an idea for the walls. I'm gonna have to go to the Foundry just to be able to name the assets.
You know, we could actually make a lighted green ceiling. It would look terrible.
It would be the
green screen. It would look horrible. I'm quite certain it would look horrible because it would just clash with all the other colors that we'd be using. But the green screen assets are quite bright. So I mean, you could almost do that, but I don't think it would look very good. All right. So while Dragoon is messing with some of this stuff, we have a mission review.
Yes.
So Duncan and I independently played a new Foundry mission called "Paying the Price" by Zeb Godwin. And he's actually one of the authors who is entering into the challenge, as it so happens. So you and I can talk about that while that's about in the Foundry here. So basically the premise is you are informed that Orion pirates are messing around with a pre-warp civilization for reasons unknown at the start. And there's a research team on site because, you know, they're doing one of those duck blind things to study these people because they haven't made first contact. And you have to go help them out. Save them from the Orions. So you go
without being exposed?
Well, it becomes a little more complicated than that, ironically enough. Which was a nice touch, I thought.
Oh yeah.
He took, you know, the usual duck blind / first contact situation that they've done in the shows a couple of times, and he turned it a little bit on its side and did some new things with it, I thought. So that was nice. It was really a very good mission in terms of story and plotting, I thought.
Yeah, that's what I noticed about it too. Because you start off just by taking care of the immediate things. So you beam down to the duck blind facility to try to take care of the Orions who have attacked. So you get the basic skinny of what the researchers are doing, a little bit of background information on the species too. And then you find out that one of the researchers is out there. So, you know, was attacked by the pirates, now it just tried to escape the facility and is in danger of being in contact with one of the indigenous life forms who are being attacked by the Orions. So it's you enter in this really complex situation of we've got to sort of someone's already else has made first contact, but we got to minimize the damage while at the same time taking care of the immediate pirate situation. So we go down there and we encounter the researcher and find that the aliens were aware of the research teams because they are strongly telepathic, and the Federation researchers didn't know that.
That seems like one of those things that'd be hard to conceal as a culture, though.
They're capable of vocalization too, so it was just the fact that they have this ability. It wasn't apparent at first.
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things where, I mean, what's the best way to put this?
So you would assume that they would basically be using it, sort of skipping conversation, but you can also assume that as a researcher, you might think that they're using a lot of implicit body language.
Well, see, in the TV show, there's only ever one telepathic race ever encountered that didn't have the ability to use verbal communication, and that was the Karn. I mean, the others you encountered
the Undine, sort of.
Oh yeah.
If I remember right, the Undine did actually have vocalizations.
They screeched. They
That's
screeched
true.
violently and
That's
attacked.
That could have been a language, I suppose.
It was one of those things where it's something that we didn't, really necessarily understand, but it was something akin to speech.
Yeah. You're right about that.
So
in any case, you basically have to, you talk to these people and you figure out how you're going to proceed against the Orions, because they've been taking prisoners and slaves, essentially. And, you need to go get them back. Are you going to get the help of the natives, or are you going to do it yourself? Brings up a lot of, good questions like that. And pacifism, and he kind of uses this race to examine your Starfleet officer a little bit.
And that's what I really noticed about it too, that it's sort of like you're entering this conversation, which you take as an original first contact, and then, or just kind of this first contact scenario, and then you start, having this really strong contrast between these people and yourself, and they know that, and they're pointing that out to you. Because some of them are pacifists, some of them are wanting to attack the Orions to try to get their people back, and they sort of hold you up as an example and a counterexample simultaneously. So you enter an argument between two natives who are representing the people who want to go out and actually start being proactive, and the people are saying that they should remain true to their ideology. So there was some really good dialogue in this. Mm-hmm. It was very straightforward. So it was not like big dialogue text, long sort of intricate conversations. It was very solid discussion, and then a lot of characterization and some really interesting facets on the species. Because they have
that was going to be my suggestion to him. And it is my suggestion to him, is to start branching out the dialogue a little bit, because he basically didn't have any. It was all very linear dialogue, and there's definitely a lot of room, I think, to flesh out some of those conversations. Create some different responses from the captains. Create some discussion. And one of the particular places that I sort of was wanting it was. One of your bridge officers comes up with a very interesting interpretation of the Prime Directive of, why should we go, this is why we need to go help these people, even though we haven't made first contact. And it was very good, but it felt like, you needed some argument from either the captain or the other bridge officers. And then, the captain to step in and say, I'll take this recommendation.
Yeah. And there was actually some optional dialogue that popped up earlier. They used it to sort of give a species background. But it was just basically in place of an info dump. Mm-hmm. So optional dialogue between characters would have been a really good thing to flesh out this mission.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that it's kind of caught my attention here about this is that the Prime Directive in the TV show had a limitation where it did not apply to races that had already made contact with any means, even if it wasn't necessary. an official first contact.
Yeah,
And
so that
this
was
race,
And that's
as
essentially
you mentioned,
yeah.
had detected the presence of the Federation, even though the Federation was attempting to conceal themselves.
the final justification that basically sort of cut out the argument was that the Orions had taken prisoners. So the Orions had basically rendered the question moot, and then it turns out that the aliens had greater knowledge than we anticipated.
Well,
So
I
the
mean,
first thing is that the Orions took pirates. They made first contact in the perception of the player at the time. Then we go and discover that these aliens are strongly telepathic.
They
So
already knew it about us anyway. So.
they technically made first contact with the Federation research teams, and they're basically waiting for them to get the nerve, in their view, and approach them to make first contact. So they're basically just like, oh, these are sort of some strange outsiders who are watching us, and hey, we kind of like them, so we're just going to be patient, just do our thing, and eventually they'll make contact. That was their idea.
yeah, because in TOS, one example of this was the episode where the Federation and the Klingons had somehow ended up in a situation where they'd basically been financing different factions on a planet in a sort of like an arms race where the two different factions were using tech they hadn't really developed and didn't necessarily know how to use right. But that the Federation didn't want to, actually attack the Klingons because they were nominally at peace with the Klingons at the time. Kind of made for an interesting scenario. But
the Prime Directive can be kind of a difficult thing to write around sometimes.
Well, I kind of see the Prime Directive as sort of like the Constitution, that it's somewhat left open. I mean, it's not meant to be this hard and fast document, because no matter how much they write it, yeah, it's an ideal almost,
like the Pirates Code.
and I think that's why we have so many instances of captains who are willing to bend it, because they're looking at the reason behind the Prime Directive, not necessarily just what is the letter of the law.
The literal, yeah.
Well,
the
and
literal,
as far as storytelling goes, there's not much drama in. Oh, there's a primitive civilization down there. Let's just fly right on by.
It would have made Voyager a much shorter series.
Yes.
I mean, that's like this old thing that someone says that the TV shows were not made about the boring parts of the Enterprise's journey. So there were, hundreds of situations. They did things that were lame and dull, and we only
exactly by the book.
Yes, let's go make a show about that Excelsior's 2-year catalog of gaseous anomalies.
well, one of the things that I really liked about certain specific episodes is that they start off by showing us what a typical day in the life of the Enterprise crewman really was. Then things go horribly wrong.
I always got a perverse sense of satisfaction just watching those sort of the more mundane sort of day-to-day episodes. Because it's like, oh, there's some, for me, it always had a greater connection to the universe, where some of the more action-heavy plots could sometimes get a little more disconnected. So they're sort of for me, they some of the the more grounded episodes kind of had a little bit more impact.
Lower Decks.
Yes.
Well, another one is Imaginary Companion, or I forget the exact name.
Imaginary Friend.
Imaginary Friend. Where they start off by having them survey a nebula that hadn't had a proper scientific survey done of it yet, and you had Geordi and this other guy talking. Some crewman named Sutter, if I remember right. They're talking about what to name the nebula, because currently its only name is FGC 47. And so that was apparently the most interesting thing that had happened up until the point where you have this energy life form start wandering around the ship, trying to figure out what the puny humans were doing.
Yeah.
So the other suggestion I had for this author was to kind of flesh out their maps a little bit.
Yeah.
This is not their first mission, and you can kind of tell in the structure and the, everything works. Everything was sort of, it's error free. So the next step is to basically, take their maps and start adding more objects and building more onto them, because, you want to make them pop. You want to make them unique. You want to make, one of the good examples is he had the village of this primitive race. And, he had some of the Vulcan buildings, as we all often do if we want to make a primitive race. And, it was good. They all attached to the ground properly and everything like that, and they were spaced out, and that was good. But this village didn't feel like it had a lot of life to it. So, add more people, add more stuff. Maybe make a marketplace over here. Make a government building over here. Start adding stuff and fleshing out and make it look like it's a real world.
Yeah, and that's my, that would be my big piece of recommendation too, is that I think this stood out a little bit more on the ground maps too, because there were, he changed the backdrops. So he utilized the options that way to sort of get the look right, but they were pretty standard, with a few exceptions where there was like a mission critical piece. So it's basically like, you almost kind of have to think that for people playing the Foundry, we've kind of seen a lot of different takes on a lot of different assets. So at this point, to be building, you really kind of have to step things up a little bit and put a lot more into the maps. And that kind of goes back to my first piece of advice from the show of you just keep adding stuff. Just keep thinking about how a space works. And then so long as you have the opportunity to add more stuff, you just sort of think about, hey, what could be here? And just use a little bit of imagination, a little bit of thought about how a certain environment works out. So everything was basically sufficient for the mission, and some of the art choices were pretty good. With the backdrops, the forest too, I thought was a good choice.
Yeah.
Because that sort of had a lot of baked in stuff to it too. So then with the buildings, that space stood out a little bit, but it is one of those things where we've built a lot of stuff on those maps before. So definitely try to make them as sort of unique as possible. Like, think about stuff that is sort of unique to your own ideas, because chances are someone probably hasn't built things in exactly that way. But as far as the rest of the mission goes, there was sort of like, the one thing I did like too is that the combat was pretty well balanced. So after you have this conversation with the natives, you basically have to then kick butt. And you go into space, deal with the Orion ships, and then
Although interestingly, there was no space combat, and I was sort of expecting there to be.
Yeah. So it's like you get up there, and then it's like, okay, we got to go find a freighter, that has that has the prisoners. And I thought that was actually sort of like one thing that kind of stood out with the narrative is that there are turns, and they come at really sort of nice intervals. So it turns out that the ship isn't actually Orion, it's Ferengi. So you interact with the Ferengi to help to capture the ship, to try to take the lead Orion alive. But more importantly, to take down to rescue the prisoners in a non-lethal way.
Yeah.
And there's some good trigger work with that too.
Yes.
I actually didn't know what one of those assets were. I've never had to do the green gas cloud thing. So it's just like, oh, that was kind of surprising. So yeah, that was a good scene. And then I did like how we didn't have sort of the super classic boss fight, that there is a little bit of a fake out at the end, which sort of leaves the thread dangling and leaves a little bit of complication, and that's nice for the player.
And it is technically a sequel to another mission of his, using that Orion character. So I imagine he wants to keep using her.
Yeah, and it's actually a great framework because, like, if I hadn't read that this was a second mission, I wouldn't have guessed it. because it really
There was one
flowed
little
very
bit of dialogue that says, that referenced the previous mission, and it says,
well. Yeah.
Some Starfleet guys thwarted our last thing. That wasn't you, was it? Which I thought
Yeah.
was pretty funny.
Yeah, so that like for me it was just like like you could read that though as
And
just
right there is a good place for dialogue options where you could say, yeah, that was us, or no, it wasn't.
or lie, no it wasn't.
Or lie, yeah, it totally was us. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely.
So
What
yeah,
was it?
so yeah, that was, and then it's sort of like you had the resolution, and then called to Starfleet, and then that was basically the end. And
Yeah, it wasn't overly long or anything.
yeah,
like that.
so it was sort of,
but it was a pretty good length, I thought.
Yeah, it was
for
very-
the story and everything wrapped up. And
yeah, it was very slick. So it had strong narrative. Everything worked. Some interesting triggers on that the last actiony map. Good use of basically narrative pacing. So sort of breaking things up, moving things around with the plot a little bit.
basically, what you've got is a mission that's good from start to finish, and now the guy should expand it sideways.
Yeah. So it's the sideways stuff which would be really good because there's a little bit of that reference, like what's going on with the station crew members, because there's backstories between them that get referenced in basically one dialogue box, because some were having a couple of them had a relationship, and you could sort of just deal with a lot of these different facets that are brought up by the main dialogue, as in what the locals are doing, what's their sort of overall outlook. You can really go into detail.
Yeah, and I wanted to get to know the characters a little more.
Yeah, so
like the researcher, Kelana or something like that. Basically all the dialogue you had with her was very straightforward, and it's like, this is a character you've gone to the trouble to name and talk to, so let's get some of her personality in there. Let's learn about her, and maybe bring her into some other scenes as well as just the first one that you see her in.
So yeah, that'd be my other bit of recommendation too, because my first mission certainly went overboard with that. But you can do that. Yeah, you can do that in a more moderated way. So you can definitely use optional dialogue.
You don't want to add an hour to it,
No. Like that's just how I do things. Not all authors should do that, because you need to be very careful with how you do that.
I have actually seen people who basically actually went and wrote out the diary of a researcher, because the theme of this particular mission was like the Federation duck blind thing. They were studying this pre-warp civilization, blah blah blah. The guy had as the primary thing is figuring out what the happened to cause the researchers to abandon their posts. And it's kind of surprising. I won't spoil the surprise, but part of you figuring this out basically involves reading the diaries of the people who were there. And when I say reading the diaries, I mean the whole thing.
Yeah,
and that's actually something that you could do with this mission. Essentially the first big map is you go through this research station and you're fighting off the Orions. What you could do is you could put diaries from this character or research entries from this character. So by the time you meet her in the next map, it says, "Hi, I'm Kelana. How are you?" You can say, "I feel like I already know you."
Yeah, and have fun with the dialogue in that way too. So overall, for an early mission, I would give it 5, because it's just sort of everything works. There's a strong narrative. It's got the core down, but it is missing a few details.
I gave it a 4 because there's definitely room to improve, but I thought it was very good.
Yeah, it's like it is that feeling of like, for me, it was just sort of like, okay, there's stuff that I know I would do differently, but I've kind of had to dial back my expectations for how many people do that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all at different levels.
Yeah. So
and we all take different approaches to our early missions. I mean, mine were fairly simple. Yours and Dragoon's were not.
Ooh.
Yeah, they just took forever.
I'm one of
Except-
those people who
I
has
did.
always loved elaborate map building. I mean,
It took me a while to try that.
I mean, even in the first actual published mission I did, I had actually figured out on my own basic trigger work, so that I would have a person go around like, okay, go. There's a force field blocking your way. Find the console that's needed to disable the force field, and that sort of thing. And at one point in the mission, I had actually put in a thing where you use a trigger to destroy a structure. And it's one of those things that I figured out because I was just like going through all of the little buttons in the interface things, saying, "Ooh, what does this button do?"
That was probably the first thing that I kind of tried as well. Is destroying a structure, because I discovered that you had the several different types of the military structures. And some were the working or the Federation structures, and some were working, and some were destroyed. And I was like, if I despawn the good condition one and spawn in the destroyed one and spawn an explosion, it looks like it exploded.
Yep. That's exactly
So I had that whole thought.
Except that it wasn't actually a building; it was one of those giant board console things.
Yeah.
The converter thing, if I remember its name right.
So we've probably all been through that process.
Are you guys ready to come back and see what I've been doing?
Yes, we are ready to come back and see all of the wonderful progress you've made, or the zero progress you made because you've been listening to us. I don't know. Which is
it is not.
It's not zero.
Ooh,
That's interesting.
I like that.
Yeah.
Good choice of walls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is the walls there?
Building
That
block
is-
walls.
That's
the
building block
yeah.
03 walls.
Has just
Yeah.
enough texture to be interesting.
Yeah, I didn't think he would show up that well, but no, that looks good.
Yep.
And then you got the horse. Oh yeah, I think this is kind of perfect.
Mhm.
So what did
Well,
you
there's
use
no
for the overhead
doors
space?
and there's no consoles at the moment.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, I think it would definitely work for custom hallways, and then we can sort of fill that out.
Mhm.
Because I think the doors, we don't really have many options. I would actually just go with standard fed because the doors are red.
Yeah.
And
doors.
our other option would be the Kittimer doors, which kind of work for the time frame, but I think it's just like too much gray on gray. So that might work
Alright.
for certain sections, like if you needed like a door separating two sections of hallway. But then I think for rooms, we might be able to get away with the standalone standard red fed doors.
All right.
I think it'd also be good to find some things to kind of break up the walls a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was
Um,
talking about with consoles.
One thing I noticed on the bridge is that they had these sort of like these cutout sections too. So if you have a console, you need to sort of hide the edges. I would put cutout pillars on either side.
Oh yeah, that's actually a very good point. Yeah, because on the Universe Bridge, when you look at the sides of the bridge, where you have those big banks of consoles, the consoles are recessed in the wall a bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they've got textures. They've got a very textured edge to them, so it's not like a smooth edge. They roughened them up with something that looks very much like those cutout pillars.
Yeah.
So let's find specifically which pillars you're talking about.
So I'm just going to search. It's cutout. Yeah, it's pillar cutout. Between the two, we've got cutout 1 and cutout 2. Use cutout 2. Cutout 2 has the right texture on the here. Which side is it?
Okay.
I'm just going to do a quick test. It's either the back or the front. So I'm just going to take a look. So that just to sort of like when you have that recessed wall, give it a little bit more texture, the edges with those.
Now, what are you talking about recessed wall?
Okay, so this would be back on the bridge.
Keeping in mind, I'm not
So
on
we
the
don't
bridge.
have-
I can't see it.
Yeah, I know, and I'm in the Foundry right now. So it's like when they do that, they have a
Here,
recessed
I can
console.
take a screenshot.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they do a recessed console, So it's a console that is moved back. So it's basically like within like the thickness of one of those building block walls. And then for the edge where you have the interface between the recessed wall and the normal wall, on that edge, they've got what looks like the cutout pieces facing out. Ready, and then it is the back side of the cutout too, which I think looks best on that one.
There's a couple different types of, I think, what you're saying. There's the one that I just put in our Skype chat, and then there's this one.
Yeah, so you see like on the far right.
Get that?
Yeah, so it's on the far right of the first screenshot where you see the wall texturing, and then Drogyn's got a close-up view of those guys. So that's what I'm sort of talking about. So the knobbly things. So yeah, the cutout pieces, the color's right, the texture's about right. Like a little bit more higher up, so you might need to sync them down a little bit to get the best effect.
So do we have any styles of console that look even remotely close like this?
Let's see.
Well, let's see. Science
the only
and
one-
civilian, I would
The
think.
closest one I can think of is the civilian ones.
Civilian medium 05 is pretty good. 06 is like a short version.
There's a variation of the civilian consoles that doesn't actually have a console. It's just a wall screen.
And we don't have any Dominion consoles, right?
No. But yeah, civilian M. Also,
what about
M12.
like Cardassian?
Oh, those are the color's
the
going to be.
Cardassian stuff. Yeah, it just doesn't look right.
Yeah. So the civilian
Sorry
ones,
about
let's see. So civilian M12, M13, and then M5 and M6.
You know what I might do is use those pillar cutouts as accents for the beams.
Because yeah, we do have a little bit of that going on too in the original hallway screenshots. And let's see. I'm just taking a look at science consoles. Nope. Yeah, Science Console 01 would probably work for the bridge, or Console Science 01, but not in the hallways.
Yeah, that's all horizontal. Doesn't have anything vertical.
And then, let's see, anything else? I'm going to take a look at the auction ones. See, Auction 06 might just be good for miscellaneous decor. Because it seems to fit. Yeah, the auction ones might be okay. They've got the classic L cars. But they sort of like the console themselves are it might be able might blend in okay. Console auction 03 might have some uses. It's the tall vertical one with a lot of different panes.
Yeah, I'm putting down these cutout pillars, see if those kind of help break things up a bit. Okay, so which consoles are we talking about?
Okay, so the civilian console M5 and M6 and M13 and 12, which are the same thing. Those ones I think are closest to the style. For the universe interior. For some other console shapes, we've also, I think console auction 03 might work. It's got the L cars, but the physical structure of the console is okay. And then auction 06 might have some uses too, especially on the bridge if we have to make a bridge. or if you need an astrometric section. I gotta check these out. The ship consoles, which are kind of taken from parts of the Defiant interior. Ship M07 might be good too. Yeah.
These are the...
Yeah, Defiant ones. M07 might work if we need something that's really thin in a recessed wall panel.
I haven't done any recessed... maybe.
Another one, holographic console for the ESD. Because it actually has the same color as our floor. So it's got a red stripe with gray sides. So that actually would be an interesting choice. Like if we had recessed sections with holographic consoles, because it's the future.
Well, this sounds...
They would blend in.
More future than the other future.
Yeah, more future than the other future, but I mean, it could be that they've got different things going on in different decks.
Everything's a future. Yeah.
Well, let's see. I kind of wanted to poke through the ESD stuff because it's got some non-standard colors going on.
Yeah, like the holographic one are kind of the perfect color scheme, and then the other ones are sort of that pure white. And I don't know how that might look. That might look okay with the lighting we've got, if it's a little dark.
See, what are the ones that are like transparent? Oh, transparent consoles. I mean, so yeah, they are very white.
Yeah, so it's the holographic one again is the ideal. Let's see, is there any other? Let's see. Yeah. Very white. Romulan. It's definitely not N. Console wall might have some, but they look a little primitive. And it's classic L cars.
Yeah. Isn't there a civilian version of the wall console?
Yeah, it's like wall panel. The panel, yeah, console wall panel. That would actually be pretty good.
No, that's not the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay. You have detail. Let's see. Is it blue and slightly tilted down?
It's brown and with green.
Oh, okay. So if it's a brown console, it's going to be in the generic ship ones.
Yeah.
So let's see. Generic. Yeah, console generic ship SO2 is the big one. SO1 is the little one. The graphics actually would look pretty good. I just don't know.
I'm thinking, what if we recess it? Or like frame it?
Yeah, that might work.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to extend the length of my...
I never noticed that it essentially plays what's displayed on the console. It runs through it like a slideshow in the little preview section there.
Well, here, let me test this out because I've been adding stuff and not previewing it. I do like, even with the limited resources that we have, that while we may not get it perfect, we can kind of get close. I have to flip those around. Oh, those are definitely at the wrong height. Like, where are my consoles? Okay. Figure if I can get one hallway right, then I can worry about the other ones through copy paste. All right, so one of the challenges is that I should double check is my walls are kind of a certain length, but I can
I'm
only
thinking if you need to. Yeah, the walls are a certain length, and then the consoles are probably going to be a lot shorter. So what I'm thinking is that you might use more sections. Well, this would be a little fine, but what you could do is hide the edges of the console with more walls or pillar cutouts.
All right, so these are the 50-footers. So I could do 10-footers, but I would have to do it really long, and it wouldn't line up with the... So, yeah, I mean, one of the things I kind of have to consider is whether or not this is repeatable. And that means I have to be aware of the length of the squares.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to extend this guy. Actually, I'm going to drop him in here. There's my ceiling in there. Bring this around. Okay, so that gives me a little more room to do this. The fun part of trying to line up carpets just perfectly. You guys ever have to try and do this?
Oh, let's see. Doing it that fine. I usually am at the coordinate system by that point.
You know the carpets don't have the Z-fighting problem, right?
They actually do.
They blend.
Well, they do. It's just they're hard to see because they're
well.
complex texture.
Well, true.
Yeah, that's resulted in some edits after the fact. Just like, oh no.
Okay,
like
so
you can also get away with the Z fighting problem on the stippled rubberized Federation floor, the really black one.
All right, so I'm just going to extend you guys. A little bit. Actually, I get a you guys up here. Let's go find me a generic. Oh, nuts. I can't actually see it, so I can't tell how wide it is.
Uh-oh.
Where?
Trowner!
Okay. Which I'm sure makes for the most riveting of Twitch viewing.
We can go ahead and talk about recent builds on the Foundry.
Sure, go ahead.
So right now I'm working on Legacy Beta, which is my next Foundry mission, which involves the Enterprise B. So on this one, it's basically getting the plot together, outlining things out, making sure I've got a nice flow. Because I noticed I actually got out of that habit a little bit of making a really good, thorough outline for the mission. So I was kind of reaching a point where I was kind of stuck on the project. It's like, okay, I'm good up to a certain point, and then it just, it's just like, oh, I'm not quite sure how to best continue things. So started outlining. Things are, I do like the holographic consoles. I'm just watching
kind of cool.
Yeah, that works quite well.
So anyway, though, for the project, it's I was kind of focusing more on costume work, so I've got a few screenshots when Drogyn has a moment on that one. But as far as everything else goes,
I can throw those up.
It's the really kind of working out sort of new angles for the project and trying to make it really just sort of as good as it possibly can be under the circumstances. So something that really kind of like takes what I learned from doing AAI missions and takes that up a notch. So some of that has now taken focus in some pretty in-depth dialogue writing. I'm not sure if I've gotten as far as I did with Trident Part 1, but it's getting up there. I just got to, I'm right now focusing on writing out the Romulan characters to justify why they're in the mission. But then we'll be moving on to the Enterprise B crew and another individual who's going to be joining you for the mission. So it's a good mix, and I'm having a lot of fun with the costume designs. One of them, the one that has that sort of, it's a silver costume that uses Lucari and Terran armor, the silver and gray one. That is my preserver. So that's actually not in the same project right now, but I'm just like, I just want to do a little bit of design work on that. So that was a fun one. The other ones you're seeing are actually as part of the mission. So various new species, new aliens that you'll be encountering. And really just going really to town on the new possibilities we have thanks to some of Zero's new add-ons, like the Vodvar mask and Lucari pieces. But yeah, just really kind of going all out on this project. So it's a combination right now of writing, of map building. So I'm back into that now because I do have a good idea for how to finish off the project. And then making sure that things are going smoothly with all the different elements of the story, because there are a lot of balls in the air for juggling on this one.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say what I've been working on, which is I'm going to essentially enter my own contest, but only after it's done. So I'm going to tell my version of what happened to the USS Infinity, which I will endeavor to build very quickly in the next 3 weeks, and so I can put it out there after voting is done and after we have a real winner. Because obviously, as I was writing all of the lore blog, essentially, to go with it, I was having in my head what I would do for a Foundry mission to follow up, and that's actually where the idea started. I was going to make my own, and then it was Drogyn's suggestion to turn it into a challenge topic, which worked perfectly because we were looking for, how to do something that could be TOS but a little more focused.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I've been doing is basically I am trying to become DuncanIdaho.
Yes.
In a way.
Wait. In what way? I should probably ask that first.
Building sort of elaborate geometric kind of architecture using the building blocks. So basically, one of these maps that I want to build is almost like an artificial cave. So it's got, a ceiling that's obviously built, but, sort of geometric, and a floor that's kind of the same way. So that's where I'm at now. It's interesting because I figured I better build the ceiling first so that I can build the floor, and so the floor that the player is actually walking on will be visible to me in the Foundry and won't be under stuff.
Yeah. My approach to that has always just been to do ceilings last.
Yeah.
Which it kind of works because a lot of the times
I've done that before. I'm doing it first this time though.
Yeah.
I have actually on some occasions gone and figured out what I wanted to build and then built the assets in layers so that I started with the lowest layer, then put on the top layer last.
Yeah, I did that with a bar / office space combination in the last SSF mission. Which won't be the last, but it's just the most recent one.
There is no
one more
last.
no, like I'm only thinking about one more, so that'll be interesting. But my general strategy is that I can't do the ceilings first because most of the times when I start a map, I don't actually know what it's going to be in full, so I can't plan that well ahead to be able to efficiently put down a ceiling, which I know is going to work, rather than just maybe putting down like a 500-foot floor piece and starting off with that I might be able to do. But like my building style is just so freeform that I just can't like I can't really sort of plan it with the preset ceiling.
Well, it's a little different from the way I usually build, but I think it's probably going to be better in the long run, so that I can make sure that I because it's kind of an elaborate ceiling with a lot of objects on it. So
yeah, it's kind of more of a.
I don't want it to cover up the part that I need to be playable as I'm looking at it in the 2D editor. So
I see.
The other thing is I actually had you design a costume for it.
Oh, was this? It was just this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I need to. I'm gonna make the enemies the Cardassians. I'm gonna use the Cardassians in it, the true way actually. And I was like, I need something more interesting than just your basic Cardassian NPC that we have in the Foundry. So I was like, obviously turn to the costume master.
Yeah, it was in let's just say it was a difficult period for me because I was thinking about making a challenge mission right on the fly. So like in the middle of basically doing Power Rangers versions or Power Rangers / anime versions of the SSF team, which was a little bit more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. You spliced in that
Cardassian warlord.
So I'm just I don't know if Dragoon will be able to put these in, but I just put those just for reference in the chat log.
Now, what I do need to know is, what's the base for this guy here?
Oh, okay. Let me take a look at that.
Starfleet, Klingon, Romulan.
Oh, I think it was. Let's see. Klingon. Yeah, it was Klingon when I started.
I'm sure I can replicate all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's actually that would work on. Yeah, it is Klingon because it's got the TOS. It starts off with the TOS upper uniform, and then everything else is generic. But the sort of the wear pattern on the kit armor bits will only show up on the Klingon one. If you could try to make him as Federation, but he would look a little bit fresher.
Well, we do want our Klingons to be fresh.
Oh, we don't want them to be fresh. Well, except the one I'm making right now. Because I might be putting a little few things in for the 20.
The true way is, like a gritty resistance movement. So, of course, we don't want them to be too clean.
We rebel against the need for bathing.
I'm just doing all sorts of interesting trial and error here.
That's where I'm going with that. I can probably talk a little bit about the plot since, everybody else has already made their missions. So, I don't have to worry about influencing anything like that. So basically, I'm going to set it in the present day, 2410 or thereabouts. And you're going to be investigating some true way activity, and then you're going to be whisked across the galaxy. A little bit a la, Caretaker. But what you're going to find out is that you've gone to this world that was the site of an ancient civilization, and there's a new civilization on it now that is messing around with technology. They have no idea what it does. And it actually it pulls people and objects from great distances to that planet, including the USS Infinity, hundreds of years ago. But you're going to find the crew of the Infinity is still there. They're in stasis. So you can wake them up and interact with them. And the Infinity is waiting in orbit for you to activate it.
I might have to.
And somehow get home.
I might have to rush on Legacy Beta a bit. I got to get it out first.
Because you're using similar concepts, right?
Actually, kind of. So there are some similarities between them. The biggest one is that I also have the crew in stasis, because that just sort of works because you want to have the crew for certain things. I go on an adventure with at least the captain so far.
Yeah, and I was going to do that too. But in a slightly different way. Okay, so I'm cribbing a few things from Halo.
Yay!
which I'm sure you won't mind.
No, totally good.
So I have this idea that, somehow the captain got woken up first, and she can't figure out how to wake anybody else up. But she did find this technology that basically allows your consciousness to move in and out of machinery. So, she's been observing machinery and technology all over this planet, and that's about the range of it. And then suddenly you show up, and it's like, oh, hey, Starfleet officers. They're a little different because they're from, I don't know why yet, but hey, Starfleet officers, I might get rescued. So basically, she can essentially inhabit your tricorder and your comm badge, so she can see and hear everything that you see. In a way. So she's a little like, Cortana.
So that's interesting.
And she can guide you around.
That is interesting.
I'm going to make her a complete, jokester wise ass as well. So.
Yeah. That would be good to play against the sort of the standard view of the character of being a little bit more sort of uptight. So that's really cool. Yeah, for the to go a little bit into the setup on my mission, I do straight away have the basically the premise of the mission starting off is to find the Enterprise B, because the sort of what the mission is about is actually something else. So Enterprise B is kind of the hook and sort of a central plot element, but the twist is something else. So a little bit later on in the mission. The sort of the way it gets started, though, is that we sort of have detected the Enterprise B, a signal coming from it, in the vicinity of the Solanae sphere. So the Alliance wrangles up a few ships to to go on a search, because we don't know exactly where it is, but we know it's out there by the Solanae sphere. The ship being originally lost in a transwarp experiment. So they tried to resume what they started with the Excelsior. It kind of worked. The ship made one trip out, but wasn't able to make the trip back. So it was on its way when it encountered something. And that thing is the rest of the mission.
Okay, so I'm stealing from Halo, and you're stealing from Event Horizon?
I haven't seen it, though.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Well, don't until you're done with the mission.
Okay. Well, that's kind of the thing. It's like the last one, like I tend to have a habit of making missions as very close to things I haven't seen yet, because Mass Effect Andromeda was epoch. Almost entirely.
That's okay. I've had the same problem before, because Purity was basically Captain America Winter Soldier. So
yeah. So we working the Foundry develop a very weird kind of prescience. So we have foreknowledge of the future in mass media entertainment, but we can only express it through the plots of Foundry missions.
We have been taking the spice regularly.
Yes. So
Duncan, or not Duncan, Dragoon, the other D person, where are you at? What do we got here?
I have actually managed to successfully sync my those generic consoles into the wall. And I've just been kind of tweaking the this section of corridor, the idea being that once I get this done, I can just copy paste it into the other sections. I'm mostly just trying to see what I can do to break it up.
Just make the corridors a little more interesting.
Yeah. All right, so do up another playtest. So I had to extend out my walls, or my corridors a little bit, just to fit them, or fit in the section of the wall that I needed to cut out and recess. Let's fire up preview here.
Find that we need to adjust things we put down early in the build as we get later in the build.
Oh, yeah. On a recent project, I discovered that everything was off by one snap on the coordinate grid from one point on from the map. So I had to highlight about 130 objects, calculate how much in meters that one half foot, that 1 foot move is, and then add that onto the Y, so things didn't then start re-snapping to the coordinate grid and just completely destroy the map.
So I incorporated
That
your
was-
holographic console idea.
Ooh, that's really nifty. So you've got
the
that
holographic
sort of
console in
inset-
front of the other thing.
Yeah. Oh, that is nice.
Still need to bring out
That's
the
pretty cool.
pillars a little bit. We're only getting bits and pieces of them. Which is kind of cool in and of itself, but
Yeah, it's sort of asymmetric though, since they sort of have a little bit more going on one side than the other side.
question is, which side do they have more going on?
I would actually think about yeah, I mean, if sidelong, you get a lot more texture. You get the sort of the knobbly bits on the front and back. But yeah, it's exactly how far to move them each time. I mean, you
Yeah.
could go with them being irregular. I mean, that might be an element of the mission.
Well, like I said, I mean, the goal is to be visually interesting without, and I've got to pretend that this is a much larger map that someone might build. So I've got to be careful of the asset count. At this point, I don't think it would be too bad. I mean, you could get a fair bit of ship before you start running into serious asset limits.
Yeah, because just for these hallways, I've done I've done more complicated ones, or just more asset heavy ones, and I was still able to build out pretty nicely. So I think we're still pretty good for making this a very usable space for people. Oh yeah, I like that because it kind of that kind of blends a few things together with how those pillars are now.
Wish our walls were just a tiny bit brighter. I thought about
Yeah,
using those one generic.
Change the backdrop.
Oh yeah.
Okay, any recommendations?
One of the night ones. So I found that worked really well for my Oh well, it might have some weird color stuff going on. But let me see which one it is. Backdrops, exterior, sky, night. I believe it is 05
With the
with a little bit of red. Also
Okay.
worked good for space too. If we need something that's like a cool blue, then exterior alpine night might work too. I used that for Epoch, and that worked out okay, but it was still pretty dark on the interiors.
okay. Well, I mean, in theory, my primary lighting is those overhead lights.
Mhm.
But we'll see.
And which size are you using for those?
I think the biggest one.
Okay. There is
Yeah.
there is one
So-
brighter, and that's the generic ceiling one, but that one's hard to use because if you inset that too far, then you start having the weird some of the weirdness go on. So let's see, the lighting is coming down again. There we go. It's a little brighter.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I could play around with this for quite a while.
Yeah, playing around backdrops is.
I haven't even attempted a door yet.
No, that should be relatively. The door might be easy.
Well, I
you
mean,
might,
it's about as hard as insetting these guys into the wall.
Yeah, I think you might be able to fudge it a little bit if you use columns on either side of the door to give yourself a little bit more latitude. So you don't necessarily have to place the walls perfectly. You can sort of use the columns of the same texture, so the O3 columns. Or are they called? No, they're columns. They're columns. So you can space those on either side. If you if there's a little bit of a gap, you can fill those in. Use those to fill in.
All right.
Oh yeah, Johnny Snowball's got a good point too. If you wanted to sort of like have a little bit of a sort of a lip on the floor between the walls, so it's not just it's a squared off. We have an angle coming up. You could use ramp pieces. I might have done that recently.
Reference
Can't talk about that one though.
imagery. Just kind of get some ideas. Because I mean, it's pretty stark. There's really not like any curvature to the walls in the vertical.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty stark.
Okay.
At the very least, I mean, even if final people don't make it quite this complex, I mean, even with some simple building blocks, you can get something that's passable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this definitely takes a cake. Oh yeah. So we don't have the lip in those hallways. So yeah, I think what we've got is really good for a it's something that you can build very simply, and let's see, it doesn't take a lot of assets. Doesn't take a lot of people can do it. It might be a little finicky getting the recess just right, but I think you might be able to fudge it. A little bit with the if you really needed to with some extra pillars. That would eat up the assets, but I mean something that if an author's having trouble building this interior, they could do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, imagine that prior to this contest, we'll put out the
the coordinates too.
List.
Ah, yeah. Okay, I was just thinking about doing a custom, complete like just custom build. So no, that would totally.
Well, no, it would just be an example, and so they could like copy paste sections.
Oh yeah, but
I mean,
new authors will also have the experience of putting everything in there with the coordinates too. So that would give them a little bit more practice in doing the fine detail stuff.
Yeah, and you could actually take out this screen and like put in a door here if you wanted to do like a specific room that's off to the side. Although I guess in the looking at the screenshots, they actually have this like full alcove where it's recessed
around
back
the doors. Yeah, I like the little alcove for the consoles because I think that works. With some of the stuff that's on the bridge. So like if you see a display screen, it's pretty much right there. But then the consoles have these big. The doors have the big alcoves.
I know. I mean, all right. I mean, I figure we're starting to get close to our time here, so I'm not sure I want to embark on trying to do the doors or if I'll have enough time.
Yeah.
We can do that for another day. And we'll make sure to release details about all of the assets we use and that sort of thing as we get closer to doing that particular challenge. And then people can run wild with it.
Yay.
It's funny, as I was, as you guys were talking about that, I was recreating the Cardassian warlord that Duncan built for me. And then I added the scraggly beard to it. Because we know from TNG that Cardassians can have facial hair. They apparently just usually don't. And then I realized, when I put that on there, I realized I was building the Cardassian Saw Gerrera from Rogue One. It's like,
save the true
way.
way.
Exactly like him. What the hell? Save the dream. Anyway, anything else you guys want to cover tonight?
Let's see. News and Star Trek Online in general. We've got the writing contest finish up, and we did have 3 winners for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kael.
Were any of the winners you guys?
No.
Okay. Because
No.
they did not put @ handles with it. They used people's names.
Yeah, so I did not win this one because for me it was I was a little bit more silly on my first contact thing, but I did post it up there. So Kael has a thread where you can not only read the 3 challenge submissions, which are officially published on the Critic website, but people have also been posting in that thread. There are various entries, so there's a lot of good community reading material out there now, which Foundry authors might take a look at just to see what other people are doing for writing. and also to get some ideas for how people are generally approaching characters, dialogue, and backstories too, because that's what I noticed on the challenge winners is that those were pretty good. Yeah, mine was very dialogue heavy, conversely. So there's a bunch of different styles there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a matter of scale, not so much if it's dialogue heavy or not. And I've seen some people do things like, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, with he kind of made you read the people's diary, and that, yes, it was as time consuming as it sounds, and boring.
Yeah, I had an action plot in mind. That was hard. That was hard to get in 1,500 words to have a full action plot with character movement. It's like, oh my god! And I also got to fit jokes in here too. But yeah, I mean that stuff is available right now for people. So we do have a resolution on that one, and this response has been positive. So keep an eye out for some point in the future that might kick back up again.
That'd be cool.
Hopefully pretty soon. Let's see. And I guess another word to throw out there for people is that we do have a bunch of authors who have been posting on the Foundry forums looking for feedback. So keep in mind if you're looking for stuff to play in Star Trek right now, because we're sort of through a featured episode, winding up the last few weeks. Maybe looking forward to the summer event relatively soon. Keep an eye out for people who are specifically requesting feedback, especially first-time authors who are really trying to learn the Foundry. So the one we did today, I picked up on that way, and then hopefully by the next show, I should have another early review or early mission of a Foundry author's career to review too.
Yeah, the one we mentioned today,
paying the price.
Is
that Godwin?
By Zed Godwin
is Lowe's in there.
Yeah, I believe you and I were the first two people to play it, and I just played it today. So it needs more plays to get out of review. So please, if you want to help that particular author out with that. And obviously, after Sunday, we will have the challenge missions to play. We want to get those out of review as quick as we can, for sure, so everyone can find them. I'm going to post the details and let people review those anywhere I can post that. So hopefully we get lots of plays and lots of votes.
Yeah, and hopefully since we just had a new Spotlight come out, people should be looking for more Foundry content. So this would be a good way of giving people in the general community a bit more to play. Because Apex doesn't take that long. It's one of my short ones. So yeah, just get the word
Which
out.
For you is really saying something.
Yeah, I mean, I built it for I built it specifically for a challenge thingy. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do the elaborate character stuff.
Don't go completely overboard.
No, I just put that all in optional dialogue. So yeah, and I guess the other thing we should probably point out that the screenshot contest is I think it's going on for one more week. So if you haven't entered that yet, that's still out there for people if you're listening to this live or within the next week. And definitely thanks again to Ambassador Kael for putting everything that we've basically been talking about together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're definitely in a nice era here for Stowe. So
it is the golden age.
Bear with me for just a second.
Yeah, I guess the other thing I could say too is that I did spend some time over the last week running a new short story SSF thing on Ryza. So a couple of the Starfleet security characters going through a very short adventure. Pizza is involved. Okay.
There's my Cardassian.
Okay, so I shall take a critical view on it. One thing I will say is that I did play around with the sliders on mine just a little bit.
Yeah, but I haven't done that yet on mine. But
yeah, but I just went for
the default. I was like, oh my god.
Default looks okay. Now let's see, where did that go? Okay, there we go. Ooh, I like the scar. Scar was a good one. But yeah, everything else color looks spot on. Oh, except the base uniform. So you got the sort of the sleeves and the collar. The base uniform on mine was actually that sort of
Gray,
the brownish gray. Yeah, it sort of matched the collar.
That's right
Yeah.
there. That looks better now.
Yeah, but yeah, we did totally make the SDO version of Saul.
Yeah, basically. Except he's going to be a bad guy, not a good guy. So,
well, that's good. That's good.
Well,
So,
Saul
awesome.
Guerrero was kind of meant to be something of a anti-hero.
The extremist good guy, the good guy who's too hardcore for the other good guys.
Too
All
bad
right,
to be
well,
good.
too bad to be good. There you go. I think we will go ahead and end the show there. So, Dragoon, if you want to put up our contact info.
Okay. We can be reached by email at foundryroundtable@live.com. We are also on Twitter at foundryroundtab. Drogyn can be reached at Drogyn1701. Duncan can be reached at Gorgonops_SSF. Mark can be reached at Markhawkman. And I, of course, can be reached at Greendragoon.
All right. Well, we will say goodnight.
Alrighty.
Good night.
Good night.